A very good morning to you. I'm Howard Feldman. This is the Synthesis podcast. And this morning I'm chatting to Tom Wells. He's a director at Synthesis. I wanted to talk to him about a project that certainly I have found to be very, very exciting, very useful. It's not really an interview in the classic sense of the word, but I wanted to have a discussion with Tom around an initiative called Pulse. Tom, good morning. How's it?
Hey, how's it, Howard? How are you doing?
Oh, excellent. Well, that's the whole point, isn't it? Is how am I doing? So every Monday morning,
Great, yeah.
I get an email that asks me how I'm doing. And it gives me a whole bunch of choices. And all I need to do is click on it and say, this is how I'm doing. This is how I'm feeling. I'm feeling meh. I'm feeling cool. I'm feeling inspired. And of course, these results all come back to me a little bit later, as well as everybody else's, as in my position as head of people. And I can get a sense
And
of
so
how
what did you click this week, Howard? What was
this
your
week
choice?
I actually clicked cool because that's how I was
Cool.
feeling. And it's an
Yeah,
amazing thing. That moment, you just stop and you think, how am I
yeah,
feeling? And you just identify with it. Just to take me on the journey, because I stepped into this and I absolutely love Pulse. But how did
yeah.
it come about?
So for me, like I'm not like an employee wellness person, but I'm a data-driven kind of person. So I think it might have been like the beginning of last year when Synthesis is growing in size. We've got more than 100 employees. It's sort of getting to that size where, like having a personal relationship with every single employee is like really difficult. And although, that's what we focus on and that's what it's part of our culture and how we run the business. But there was a need, I think, to have a bit more of a sort of an objective kind of data measurement around some of the campaigns and some of the initiatives that we run within the company. So instead of kind of sort of providing a tool so that when maybe some of the senior staff want to run an initiative, or they have a gut feeling about something that they'd like to change, maybe from a process perspective or even from a project or customer perspective, just to give them another tool which can provide them with some of that like data evidence to potentially back them up, or to potentially, like stand against maybe some of those feelings that they may have, and it just really started as very much like this very small idea, and a couple of the guys in my sort of R&D space talked about all sorts of wacky ways of where could we source more data about just about what's going on within our business, and we're a software development business, so we generate a lot of data actually. We're writing code every single day, and all that code gets committed into repositories, and we can analyze those repositories, and people are messaging each other always, over chat and collaboration tools. But none of it really dealt with the kind of like the sort of like happiness quotient, right? Whether people are productively writing code is great. It doesn't really tell you a whole ton. It maybe tells you, which people work well with each other in which teams, etc., and maybe which languages they're more proficient in, or which technologies they tend to work in. And so what we did in the beginning is we just said, well, what would be really cool is if we could just ask everyone one simple question: how are you feeling? And give them sort of 10 options. It's kind of evolved today into 10 emojis. You really just choose from a list of emojis. And I think we've put the word next to the emoji to help you, Howard, mostly.
Yeah,
But
that was, I was just going to say, that was
yeah,
for the
that
older
was your
people.
influence. Yeah. So we explain what the emoji means, for some people, but most people just get the emoji.
Older people.
Yeah.
Yes. What's also interesting about it is traditionally, if somebody wasn't happy or wasn't working well with a team, you'd have to pick that up a little bit later. Something would go wrong. Maybe suddenly the work quality wouldn't be good. This gives you a bit of a forward warning, because if you're seeing for the 3 Mondays in a row that somebody's exhausted or somebody is uninspired or whatever that word would be that they would choose, then you can't be surprised if the product that they're producing isn't up to standard.
No, sure. And I like the way you say it's an early warning system, because that's exactly what I think it is. I think, like certainly in the software space, I mean, a lot of people are like, they tend to be more in that like introverted kind of spectrum and don't easily communicate their feelings. But when you offer them sort of 10 emojis once a week, and you do just sit there, and it's actually very easy to kind of go, well, yeah, actually I'm feeling like a bit meh this week. I'm not feeling like great, or I'm feeling tired, or I'm feeling like whatever, wacky or angry, or like whatever the options are. That's actually quite an easy choice, and I think sometimes like quite a meaningful choice. So even someone who may be quite introverted, maybe not like that in touch with their feelings, and maybe feeling a bit of frustration, may choose something that is like a little bit different for them that week. And that is kind of like putting up a little flag to say, like, guys, like I would, a little bit like I need some attention, or there's maybe something that can, and sort of like trigger a bit of a conversation, rather than having to reach out to someone and initiate something. Have that be initiated, and I think that's pretty cool, right?
So that's what I found very useful is I go through the list and I'll see somebody who's exhausted or feeling overwhelmed. And it's just a matter of reaching out and say, listen, I see that, you responded that you're feeling overwhelmed. Is there anything we can do? Is it, some way we can help? And I just think that conversation alone changes that, because suddenly you don't feel that nobody cares. There is somebody who's reaching out.
Well, I think it's important to see it as one extra tool. I don't think it's the tool, and I don't think you could run the business purely on these sort of 10 questions, but it's certainly like one small dimension that I think is important, right?
Well, it's got to be
I think
part
also
of the
when you look
culture.
at it from an aggregated perspective, when you aggregate the whole company across, then you can start to see trends, which I think is also quite interesting. So like, for example, we can see the trend. We can see COVID-19 in our data. It exists. We see it. We see the spike go up. We can see it slowly maybe taper down as people maybe become more comfortable, or maybe we get better at like managing more of a remote working environment, whatever, right? But certainly the trends are quite interesting.
So what trend have you seen over the last few months?
So I've quickly shared my screen, and I can show you some of those trends just from an aggregated perspective. So there's no individual identifiable data here, but it's really just a count. It's a very simple graph, actually. And I was talking about being able to show trends, and this really shows you the kind of COVID-19 trend. So this data only goes back to December, but you can kind of see December through to January seemed okay. And I think as people started getting into the swing of things, maybe towards the end of February, it was kind of like a whole lot of mixed, a big basket of mixed kind of emotions, I suppose. But I think if you go and look at them, they're all generally fairly positive ones. And then you can see sort of beginning of March, there's a big jump into, I think, which is fine. This becomes our era of fine, where fine previously was I think in kind of third position. It suddenly
fine would always worry me when people said they were. When people said they were fine, that wasn't cool. That wasn't good. But then suddenly fine became the dominant response.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which I think is interesting, actually. And maybe we need to break down what fine means more within Pulse. Maybe it's a bit more of a grouped kind of feeling. I'm not sure. But you can then see, so from March into April, we're in the era of fine for sure. But if you look at the next two underneath, you're kind of starting to see that cool kind of emerging again into a sort of second place, which I think is good, I suppose. I don't know. I think people are maybe feeling a little bit less or a bit more stable about things. I don't know. I just think it's very interesting that we have that data.
It really is. And of course, the other thing is it's not only limited to this. We can ask very specific questions. And I know it's been very useful for me in trying to figure out from the 1st of June when offices could open again, who wanted to come back, how many people did or didn't. You could send out very specific questions, get the answers, allow people to comment and make decisions based on very real-time information, instead of trying to correlate 100 or 150 answers and put it in a spreadsheet.
Yeah, well, that I think is the other cool benefit to what Pulse has evolved into for us. I think it started out as maybe a bit of this happiness kind of sense, but we've also used it to ask a whole lot of different questions around people's data situation, their work from home environment, to figure out, who are the because I think sort of 80% of our staff are very comfortable in that work from home and have good data connections, either with fiber or ADSL, but sort of 20% maybe fell into that kind of mobile data category. And although mobile data is fine, we really needed to make sure people maybe were not on a prepaid and more on a more like reliable connection. And so Pulse was used to sort of elicit that as well, to just understand people in a very like private way, right? And making sure that that data goes through to the right people, who can then action and sort of solve those problems.
And then again, it also is useful. I think it's once a month or so that I'll get a question saying, do you know who the people are that you're mentoring? Are you comfortable in the role? Do you need a little bit more support? And this is a very quick way, as you said, for relevant people to understand, maybe more training, that what is working and what isn't.
Absolutely. For me, it's just becoming more data driven. So when we launched the mentoring and advocates campaign, we all had a sense that it was working well, but we had absolutely no data to back that up, right? And we're not sure how it needed to be tweaked. And maybe there were exceptions in our groups who like were sort of quite vocal about it, right? So some people, I mean, you're always going to have maybe 10% of your staff are do not benefit from a mentorship thing, but what you want is you want that minority to not become the rule, right? So like if mentorship doesn't work for 10% of your employees, that's totally fine, and they don't need to have mentors. But if it's working and it's benefiting 90% of those people, and you've got data to show that it does benefit them, then it's still a good initiative, right? And it's something that we should be focused on, rather than having the 10%. And so sometimes I think just having a bit of data to back up your like gut feel is quite important. Because gut feel, I think, can be wrong quite often, actually.
Yeah, and especially because, as you said, there's, we see it on social media. People who analyze social media often fall into this trap because the people that might disagree are much more vocal,
or louder, yeah.
Exactly. So it's quite an important thing to be able to assess. We took a decision recently, although it was developed for internal use, to start offering it to some other to potential other clients. I know that there was a lot of discussion around that. I think it's something phenomenal. Because I can see how much use I get out of it, I believe very strongly in this product. What new process would Synthesis need to follow to get it out into the market in a meaningful way?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's absolutely something that is built for us as of right now. And so I think we've opened up a sort of a closed beta phase where we are looking for and have identified a number of customers who are willing, I think, to take part in some of the product development and help shape it for a more broader market. I think for today, it's very focused on us as a software development company, as a consulting type of time and materials type of business, and I don't think that necessarily suits a broader market just yet. And so we're looking for a cool set of pilot customers, who we can deploy the platform to, who will be open and transparent and honest about whether it works, what doesn't work, be able to deal with some of the sort of warty, nasty parts of it initially, and allow the product to kind of evolve in their hands. And that's not okay for most people. I think it's kind of that early adopter type of profile.
Where do you see, before we end this podcast, where do you see the potential of something like this? And I don't mean it as a business venture. I'm talking about the potential of something like Pulse in terms of lifestyle, managing people, etc.
Yeah. So for me, very, very clearly, it's around creating or allowing more of a distributed work environment and more of a distributed workforce if that makes sense. I think this in South Africa is quite new for us, right? And we've just been plunged into it in the last while. But having a bit more data and being able to see and manage your workforce remotely, and they may be in different time zones and they may be in different jurisdictions. I think it's really around that. So I think we've got really good, strong collaboration tools. Online, we've been using them forever. So around creating meetings and having whiteboards and that kind of thing. But I think this is more around potentially that, more that like wellness kind of topic. And I think to make it less enterprisey and a little bit more easy to use and a little bit more lightweight, rather than like a big, heavy HR kind of system.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, as more and more people, there's an estimated number I saw yesterday, and I don't know how accurate it is or isn't, that something like 30% of the workforce might never go back to full-time work. The work environment, not full-time work, they are working full-time. That creates a greater need to understand where people are at. So to me, this is a very, very exciting project.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree with that. Yeah.
Tom, great chatting to you. If anybody does want to find out more about Pulse, pop over to the Synthesis website and have a look at that. I believe it's an amazing, amazing initiative, and I believe it because I use it. And that's generally where some of, I think, the best things are born out of, when somebody who actually gets use out of this on a daily basis sees this as being able to assist other people in their businesses and in their lives. I'm Howard Feldman. This has been your Synthesis podcast. A very good morning.